Yes, during my period time as a journalist with the Infal Free Press, I was able to cover a lot on the, the political and also the other emerging challenges in Manipur. I reported a lot on what we perceive as human rights violations in Manipur. Probably also because of the extensive militarization in Manipur, more to respond to some of the political tussle in Manipur. Uh, so the reporting on human rights violation and also to the community response to seek justice, to restore some of the fundamental human rights. So there were a series of reports on that, and then secondly also there were a lot of environmental and also other human rights concerns based on the increasing presence of the corporate bodies, which more or less try to encroach on indigenous and tribal first territory, and which are kind of more introduced without taking the people into consideration of their rights, and which are also introduced more without addressing the larger impact, which comprise the environmental, social, cultural, other multifaceted impacts. So after the reporting, after my tenure with the Infal Free Press, then I feel that there has to be more efforts, to reach out to the community who are more affected by this range of violations. Violation is an impact of the ongoing enactment or promulgation of the emergency law, and one of the most controversial is the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, because that's an act which derogates some of the non-derogable right, something that you can never derogate even in dire situations, like you have the right to life or right to justice remedy, which has been kind of arbitrated in Manipur.
So when was that enforced?
It was enforced in 1958, but then actually the actual act was there in 1947 also. That's more to suppress anybody try to politically certify whatever, for any group of what we consider as Indian. So but then 1958 it was formally passed in the parliament, and then it was.
No, when was it enforced in Manipur?
Manipur, it was from 1958 onwards. It was kind of parts of Manipur. It was kind of introduced, but then the entire area of Manipur comes under the Special Powers Act from 1980 onwards.
Okay.
And that has kind of legitimized a full-scale operation of the Indian Armed Forces all over Manipur. So it's led to the full-scale militarization of.
So what was there a context to that enforcement in Manipur? I mean, was that a conflict going on, or what?
Yeah, exactly, because there are groups, armed groups, who kind of oppose the merger of Manipur to India in 1949.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's not just that they oppose the merger, but then they also kind of take up arms and try to form their own organization, and so there is already a movement seeking a separate political status in Manipur, and there is something which compelled the government to come up with the military response,
Yeah.
Which assumes the form of enactment of the Special Powers Act, and Armed Forces Special Powers Act, and which kind of confers more special powers to the armed forces.
So this militancy has continued even to this day.
Yeah, I think the even after the enactment of this act, and also the full scale application, I think that has led to more complication, more controversy, more confusion, and also more. I think it doesn't help to solve the problem. So in fact, we have a proliferation of the underground groups. Those who are seeking. So it doesn't lead to any solution as of now. More human rights violation, more controversy, and now what we find is it's also increasingly, especially after 1991, when India decided to come up with its own open economic kind of liberalizes economic policies, and priorities. Then the developmental priorities in our part of the region is becoming more different. So we find there has been more effort to development, which is more the promotion of more destructive and unsustainable or large-scale development projects, large infrastructure projects.
So when did that start?
It's been there for long, but then the kind of aggressive push comes only after the 1991
liberalization
of. So we have more dam building companies, we have more mining companies, we have more oil companies, we have more road building companies, we have more international financial institutions coming in. So
but why is that? But shouldn't that be providing more employment to local people? And supposedly these are the things that develop an area. But why are the people of Manipur are opposed to it?
Yeah, because these are pursued more to serve the corporate interest, and the ones who are pursuing this kind of large scale mega development is a more of the corporate. The large corporate bodies, and many of them are multinational corporations. They are the ones pursuing this kind of projects, and with the full state support, with the full patronage of, you name all the institutions and structures that exist. So I think they have the full patronage and backing of the state institutions, and they want. So when they pursue, there is no process to respect the community's right, over the land and resources, and there is no way to also take the consideration or to at least to consult and consent.
But they are supposed to get a permission from the community.
And then one of the biggest concern is we already have concerns with previous projects, already commissioned projects. We have like the Loktak project, it's a 105 megawatt project. We supposedly should be providing enough power for Manipur. We supposedly should be providing irrigation for Manipur. We supposedly should be providing jobs and so many other benefits. But this is a project which has led to a complete devastation of a Loktak ecosystem. This has led to, this Loktak project, it has already led to undermining of food security and sovereignty, because it submerged more than 80,000 acres of prime agricultural land. So this is a project which has led to loss of many of our indigenous plant and animal species. Many of our fish species were lost. Many of our traditional species that's grown in wetlands, which are used for food, for vegetable, even for medicine, these are increasingly lost. And also for use for our cultural, rituals and ceremony. I think we increasingly lost it. And worse is like the project authority, the National Hydroelectric Power Corporation, for this particular project, they remain unaccountable. They refuse to listen to the community, and so the community who are affected by the Loktak project, they are still not compensated nor rehabilitated. So we already have a very bad experience, So now when this large scale corporate bodies comes in and again comes up with a lot of promise and comes with the notion of development, it's difficult for us to reconcile to those. And also we find a lot of developmental standards, human rights standards coming up when it comes to the community's right. And we feel that the corporate bodies or even the government pursuing this kind of development, it's important. It's time that they listen to the community. It's time that they recognize community's right, and it's time they ensure that there is enough space or process to address community's concern. So I think that is something which is missing out in our context. And one concern again is because there is already a conflict situation whereby as I also addressed earlier, like it's already militarized region, and it's already a heavily militarized region. What they find is like the typical response of the state when the community is affected by this large scale developmental so-called development initiatives. The typical response is more to use the military or the force to further suppress democratic voices. So like in Mapitel Dam, we find the militarization of the area, dam side area. I think that's more of a response to the community seeking more rights and justice for the violations committed by their project. So so when we look into that, I think that's more of a kind of rigidification of different types of human rights violation again. So that's something that an additional challenge for us. So,
how are some of the ways that community are fighting against erosion of their rights and taking away of their rights over the resources of the land or water on what that traditionally belonged to them. How are some of the ways that they're struggling against this?
I think I mean it depends on the on what exactly are the kind of development intervention in our case. For example, in the case of Loktak, where we already seen devastation and destruction and continuing violation, there the communities try to confront or address or engage the the respective concerned authority. They engage the state, they engage the government, they engage the particular power developer. They also engage with the project authority, the local development authority. They also engage at other level as well, like they also try to engage the Ministry of Environment, for example.
Okay.
And also some of the international human rights bodies as well, like the international group that deals with human rights or environmental rights. But then in the case of the oil exploration or the new projects which are coming in without our consent or without even informing us, then there we try to get more information, like because we don't get information on what's happening. So what kind of project will it be beneficial for us, or and what kind of impact it will have on our community, so or on our environment. So for those kind of especially the emerging the proposed, so that we try to engage more in terms of seeking information and also to use that information to confront or engage the government or the project authorities, to see that there are more efforts to reach out to the community and also to take their consent and also to conduct more impact assessment as well. And then another way of engagement is like we also send a lot more policies. There are more deregulation and enactment of new policy, which actually facilitate the corporate bodies, and also or those who are propagating the destruction of the land or exploitation of resources. So we also try to engage at a policy level more to see all those policies which are anti-people in nature, or which will entail more devastation for environment. So we ask for either a full revocation or full scrapping of those kind of acts or policies which are detrimental to our rights.
Are these state level acts or the national level?
There are state level acts, there are national level acts. So we try to engage at all levels. And then like we also call for, because when it comes to Manipur, the armed forces special parsec, because of the conflict, because this is something which has led not only to the violation of our people's right, not just violation of our civil right, but also we find that this is also helping in terms of creating more destruction of our land and environment, through favoring the corporate bodies. And also we are asking for the demilitarization of land and also to repeal this specific act which we consider as draconian and undemocratic.
Okay.
So these are some of the initiatives.
Yeah. So I mean, like this is not just a specific Manipur problem, and this is happening all over India. In fact, all over the world. That people, native people or tribals of the region are protesting against destruction of their traditional livelihood, their culture, their land, and the corporate takeover of all those things facilitated by the government. So have you trying to build alliances with other similar organizations or the communities?
Yeah, we know that in India and also especially in Northeast, there are so many interventions and initiatives from both corporate and also the state and also those who are supporting them. So the impact is not just confined to Manipur or because across Northeast, like we have so many dams coming up in Arunachal Pradesh, and we have so many other mining projects coming up in Meghalaya, for example. So I think and also because some of the policies at the national level, like I think that is something which impact almost everyone. So in terms of the land rights, policies on land, policies on tribal, or even the policies on forest rights. So these are all process with we said deregulated to promote corporate interest. So I think we try to understand what's happening and try to share information within the within communities who will be or who are already affected by this kind of process. So I think there is a process, there is a process to help support each other, help each other, and I think that's also very important to assert our rights together. Yeah.
So it's a recently concluded, Lok Sabha election. One party got the mandate. I mean, what they said was it was a mandate for development. In fact, a lot of people were talking about development, and they said they're voting for development. But what wasn't discussed in the election is what is the idea of development? What does that mean really at the ground level? And so Manipur, if we take the example of your state, all these dams are coming up, all these oil drilling operations going to be starting soon, and other projects are coming up. But that's what's called development, right? But then why are people of those areas are against that development? I mean, how would you explain this contradiction that when majority of the people or a lot of people in India, they say we want development, and then when this development is happening, people are opposing it. It's not just limited to Manipur. Of course, we see Chhattisgarh, we see in Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, other places, West Bengal. What does development mean to people of Manipur who are against these big projects?
I think that one of the fundamental challenges when whoever party or whoever group tries to define development, and also aggressively pursue that notion of development is it's for whose development and who defines, but for us it's clear that at least we are not part of defining that process, and at least we are not part of pursuing that interest, because when there is a group of people who defines the kind of development, I think there is an interest in it, but that interest is something which is incompatible to the interests or the wish or aspiration of the community, So, and the problem in our case, like when those who define development, they pursue their development agenda in practice, it actually is something which actually serves the corporate interest, which serves the interest of other of people who are already rich and are already able to consolidate the mass wealth of or large majority of people. So we find that it's something which doesn't serve our needs or wish or aspiration, and also it's something that entails the destruction of a land. It entails destruction of a future of our people. It entails denial of rights of a coming generation, and it also entails a serious human rights violation. So. And we find that those kind of development model is something that create more confusion, more division, more more problem for all people. So and that's why those kind of development is something which is hard for us to reconcile. So that's why there is a response to ensure that there is a development which actually responds to the need of people who really need those.
Thank you, Jiten. Thank you very much for talking to us.